Welcome to the T&T Real Estate Podcast, where we spark conversations that set you up for success. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Tanya, and we're here each week to give you expert tips and tricks to navigate Northern Ontario's real estate market. So Tyler, big news in mortgage insurance regulations.
Huge.
Yesterday, there's been big changes that are coming on board. What are your thoughts on the new CMHC rules regarding refinancing?
So we've both been in the business for over a decade, you a decade and a half. I think this is probably the biggest policy shift since I started, certainly. This is going to be a game changer for all current homeowners, especially in the city of Sudbury, actually especially all over the country, but city of Sudbury is going to get some benefits as well. And we can't say this often about policies that come down, especially regarding real estate, but I think this is one of the best ones to come into effect. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I think it's a great way for the government to incentivize homeowners to create additional units. Mm-hmm. And what's really unique about this is that they're going to allow current homeowners, or homeowners soon to be, right, the ability to refinance their properties up to 90% of the after-renovation value if they're going to build additional units on that one residential lot. So it's a huge increase in availability for funds for the homeowner to be able to unlock that equity and unlock additional equity, that future value of the home up to 90%. It's huge. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in real estate policy.
Yeah, I think it's a solid initiative. Obviously, the government's moving to multi-generational housing, whether that's with family or just, densifying what we already have. There are obviously some issues leading up to this as well. People are going to have to qualify for a much higher mortgage payment. They're going to, construction costs are extremely high these days. There's a lot to flesh out in the policy, and it'll be interesting when we actually read through the policy, because this was just announced yesterday. But I think it's going to be great, especially for those, I'm thinking, obviously, God's country, New Sudbury. I think anybody that owns a New Sudbury bungalow, we have the perfect layout to have an accessory unit in the basement, and I think people can unlock a huge amount of equity to be able to do that. And it seems like you're going to be able, like you were just saying, it seems like you're going to be able to refinance the after repair value before you do the work. You're going to have that cash to do the work, and it's not going to be like some of the policies where, okay, you find the money and then we're going to pay you back after.
So I do believe that the policy was written so that you can get that money ahead of time to pay the contractors to, do your planning, get your permitting, and do all the work that's necessary to get that secondary unit built and legalized in your property. A little bit of a drawback though, right? Because not everybody's going to be able to qualify for this. We talked about, debt ratios, debt service ratios, and what the banks look out for qualifying these individuals. And it's not going to be everybody who's going to be able to qualify to borrow this amount of money that's, going to be necessary to build these additional, units, whether it's one unit or two units or more on your lot. So it's going to be limited to those who can definitely qualify for that increased loan amount. And of course, there's limitations too, right? Because the cost of construction is still pretty high. Even since COVID, those prices for labor and for materials certainly hasn't come down. But we've seen in the city of Sudbury that the municipality has been really good at streamlining the permitting process for additional units. So, I think it's a really good thing all around. It's a great policy so that those who have the ability to take out those funds to build those extra units, they're going to be able to, maybe put in a mortgage helper in their current property, or maybe even take in, their elderly parents if they're downsizing. We do see a lot of that. You mentioned, multi-generational housing. And there's a lot of cultures and people who want to be able to do that, who want to be able to provide for their family and to have their family live with them in their houses. And that'll just create more housing units, which is what we need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. On that point, so this CMHC policy that obviously just came out that we're speaking of, it's actually, you can use it to build up to 3 additional units. So if you have a single family house now, you can go up to 4 units on the same lot. And I'm not sure if they're going to pressure the municipalities to change their bylaws. But in the city of Sudbury now you can have a legal secondary unit in the house. You have basically a duplex. You can also have an accessory unit that has to be built off, usually in a garage or somewhere else on the property. So I'm wondering if this fourth unit that they're talking about now is going to change that even farther. If you can have, kind of like a carriage house in the back or in the garage that has, a loft in the top of the garage or behind, or I'm not sure how it's going to work, but right now they're saying that you can add up to 4 units. And I'm assuming this is probably for Toronto or like the major centers where they're already at capacity on the lot. So maybe just instead of a house, you turn it into a duplex or something like that.
Yeah, we're encouraged to increase that densification, especially in the city core and in areas where we already have a lot of good transit and a lot of resources for our citizens. So densification, especially in the urban centers, is something that would go a long way to increasing the housing. You mentioned bylaws, and I think that's a really great point. It'll be interesting to see if the Sudbury bylaws do maybe change a little bit on the setback requirements and allow for people to do 3 to 4 units on, your typical, let's say, a 50 by 100 foot lot. Because as you mentioned, in the city of Toronto, we do see a lot of properties where their lots are maybe smaller than our typical 50 by 100 foot lot, and they are currently able to do 2, 3, and 4 units pretty easily. I'm not sure if their setback requirements are different, but it'll be interesting to see if our city can change the bylaws to help accommodate this new regulation. But I imagine as the policy is now, it'll probably just be you can do it if you have the proper lot to accommodate these additional units with the current bylaws.
Which makes sense, because I would hate to see all neighborhoods in Sudbury change to 4 units, and I know that's the way that we're going as a society. But I think this is I'm hoping it's geared more towards like the new Sudbury, close to the colleges, have some student rental, have some, mortgage helpers, as we say. Yeah, some executive neighborhoods. I think they might be fighting back a little bit on these policy changes. But at the end of the day, as long as we're getting more housing, I guess that's a good thing at the end of the day. Yeah,
there's definitely that potential downfall that it will change the sort of feeling of a neighborhood, right? Like if there's a lot more vehicles in a certain lot, right? A lot more people kind of coming in and out. But as long as it's planned properly, and maybe it does, stick to sort of the urban centers and the core where there is great transit, and we're already seeing duplexes on many single family lots. Yeah. But like you said, there's probably some restrictive covenants in some of those neighborhoods where they would maybe, not want to have multiple people who are not related to be living all together on one lot with 4 different units. So it'll change the sort of feeling of certain neighborhoods. There's the potential for that, but it'll really help a lot of people be able to, navigate their own personal financial goals, for one thing, right? If you're able to have a mortgage helper, another apartment or 2 apartments on your single family home, you could really make it an investment where it helps you afford. We know the lifestyle costs have increased significantly in the last few years. People paying for tuition for their kids to go to university. Daycare costs are very high too, right? And if you could have an additional unit or 2 units to help with that everyday income, I think would be super helpful. So it'll be interesting to see how our city changes and how many of these secondary units get built in the next few years. Yeah. It's definitely something we've seen a lot more of in bigger markets. Yeah. Like you mentioned Toronto, and Toronto's a very high price market. We were recently shopping for a home in British Columbia, where again it's a more higher priced market, and also a place where they maybe allow for a little bit more densification in the urban core. When we were shopping for a property there was those properties that had the quote unquote mortgage helper, those little suites in them. They were priced significantly higher than the regular single family homes. So it's a great way for people, if you can take this equity, build the additional unit, you can really add value to your current property and help build your wealth for the future.
Even in the last decade that I've been in the business, I've noticed a huge shift in these in-law suites, legal secondary units, whatever you want to call them. There is a huge demand for that, and obviously the price changes in the last decade have been the driver of why we're, needing those now. It's great. Like, families don't necessarily need 4,000 square feet to live. I mean, if you can do 2 families in 2,000 square feet, I think it's still a decent living, especially in Sudbury, where it's still way more affordable than the national average.
So overall, I think it's a great new policy that's going to be coming in January, I believe.
Yeah, January 15th.
January 15th, that's great. And so it'll be interesting to see how many permits get applied for at the city. Hopefully we can get a pulse on that and see what changes in the new year. And then we'll try to read through the policies when it comes out and see exactly how that would affect, the average homeowner who might be looking into using this policy for their benefit.
Absolutely. And it would be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing how long you need to hold your house before you can refinance into this. Because if somebody's looking at this rate now and says, you know what, I'm going to buy, I always say it, the new Sudbury bungalow now, close on it in December, and then January 15th apply for this permit, I wonder how long. Can it be a month? Or can it has to be over 6 months or a year? How long do you have to hold it to be able to refinance to it?
That's a good point. I imagine there will be some kind of stipulation if it was already CMHC insured when they purchased, right? If they did that CMHC on closing, but I don't see why not. If the value is significantly higher for the after repair value, it could be that 90% makes sense. And that they would qualify for that loan. It'll be interesting to see, but we'll have to.
There's still a ton to find out about this policy, but everything that we know so far, which is only 24 hours into this policy, looks good.
Yeah.
Well, with 25 years experience, Tyler and Tanya can help you. We have mortgage brokers we can set you up with, and we're always happy to help.
Thanks for tuning in today to the T&T Real Estate Podcast. We'll catch you next time for more tips and strategies navigating Northern Ontario's #1 real estate market.